Hello, this is part 3 of going through this hardware stash. I'm going to try and go through things a bit quicker because these videos are getting far too long. So this is all Spectrum stuff again that I've found. We've got a data cassette recorder here, pretty standard sort of thing for the time. This one's a bit worn. I think this was actually from a car boot sale. We've got some belts to replace the belts in the floppy drives on these units. I've got a pack of 5 here because I've got 3 drives to replace. There is a drive somewhere, a spare one, but I have no idea where it is. I can't find it. This is a spare keyboard. This is out of the Spectrum that unfortunately I threw away. I kept the keyboard, I kept the floppy drive which I can't find, and I also kept a power supply from it, so I've got a spare supply, so that can go with the other plus 3 that I've acquired off of eBay. And then I've got another one here which came with the replacement plus 3 that I'd bought from someone after I'd chucked my original one away. That's this one here, and this one's actually in really good condition, so I don't really want to do any changes to this. Again, I'll probably just build a couple of sets up, sell on the stuff that I don't want, and then what I do want for my projects I'll keep and use. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff here, so I think most of this won't be kept. I think what I will keep is the obviously the Div MMC for loading the games. This PCB is going to be kept and used in the project. The floppy drive when I can find it. There's also this multi-face which I forgot to mention. This is a bit like an action replay on an Amiga or many other systems and consoles. You can press this button and it will basically stop the game or program running, and then you can do all kinds of different things, including cheating, saving game states out, things like that. So a game that doesn't let you save your progress, you can use one of these, I think, to save the current state and then reload it and carry on at a later date. So it's a nice bit of kit, that. Obviously we've got belts we're going to need. I'm going to keep this because I've got something in mind for this, and the keyboard. So out of all that lot, this really here is all I'm really interested in keeping for the project I've got in mind. I will still look at the other Spectrums. I'm not even sure if they will work properly. I imagine the belts on all the drives will need replacing, which I'm going to do anyway because I've got a pack of 5 new ones. So we'll have a look at those anyway, and then hopefully at some point I'll get to move on to a project with these, see if it's feasible to do what I want to do, and go from there. This lump here is an Amiga 2000. This was actually rescued from being thrown away. I was speaking to somebody at work that I knew. They were talking about throwing a computer away. I asked them what it was, and they said it said Commodore on it, so I asked them to save it for me, and they actually brought it in to me, luckily. I've got a keyboard for this somewhere, but unfortunately no monitor. It's got 2 floppy drives in it, and I think there's a hard drive in it as well. I've never actually had this fired up, so it'll be interesting to see if it works. Next on the list is this fairly large box, and this is all Amiga stuff. So there's a lot in this box, so I'm just going to try and go through this as quickly as possible, really. This is a little expansion. You plug in between your floppy drive and the main board, and it basically stops the drive clicking as it checks for disks. I've got a couple of RAM expansions here. This is a 500 one that gives you 1.5 meg. Unfortunately it's unpopulated. Looks like I've removed the battery before it decides to self-destruct. This one looks like it's a 1 meg A500 plus expansion. Yep, and that's also obviously populated. and we've got a little switch on the end here which is useful for enabling and disabling the extra 1 meg of RAM. So that will probably come in useful because I have got 500 plus that I'm intending to use. This is a bit of hardware and software I used to have. It's a sampler. You just plug an audio source into there and then sample on the Amiga. There's a bit of software. It's a pretty good piece of software. I rebought that because it's one I used to have. Here we've got some ROM chips for the A590 disk controller, which are upside down. This allows you to use a CD-ROM drive on the device. 8-pin expansion. I used to have one of these, the Daytel version of this, with the action replay. What you do with this, you can plug this into the side of the Amiga, or it would actually be that way around. Then you can plug your expansion into the side. So that could be, in my case it was the A590 hard disk interface, and then you can plug a second one in that way at the same time, which for me was an action replay. So I might actually show that in a bit. This looks like it's a ROM switcher of some sort. Looking at the chips that are on it. Not quite sure. Some of these you could switch using key combinations when you turn the machine on. Some of them you had a flying lead to a toggle switch that you could put at the back of the machine or wherever you wanted. I think some of them you could actually use either way, so I have to look up how to use that one. This is a early floppy disk emulator for the Amiga, and this actually worked by using the PC to host the floppy disk image files. You see on the end here this has got a USB port, so you would use your PC as a floppy drive in effect, and then this was like an interface between the two. This is another unusual one. This is an accelerator. This one's actually supposed to be for the A2000, but you can use it on the A500, and you'll see the form factor of it. It's a bit like an expansion on the side of the A500. From what I've seen of pictures of the A500 version, the only difference is the type of connectors that are soldered onto here. Again, I've not tried that, but this might be worth trying in the A2000. There's some software with it, and this looks like a bracket for the A2000 case with a toggle switch on the back. Okay, these are just some expansion port connectors that I bought. I was struggling to find these at the time, but it may just be that I was searching for the wrong thing on eBay. This is a RAM board from an Epson printer. I just kept it in case any of these RAM chips on here are of any use on any of the old systems. Had that a very long time. And in here, I think this is another expansion port extender. This is actually a Daytel one. They probably made this so that you could use the action replay and another thing at the same time. I think that says Daytel there. I don't know. Yeah, very useful that. This is an A590 hard drive and RAM expansion. It's a little bit grubby. I think this may have been bought as untested. I'm not entirely sure, or faulty. It's so long ago I can't remember. I've got one of these fully boxed with a power supply, but I bought this one because I was really after one that I could break down and use in the project that I want to do with the Amiga. So I wasn't really interested in the case being in good condition. Another thing I've got here is some floppy drives, pretty classic Cumana floppy drive. Zydeck, I believe this is a Zydeck, or it's a clone of a Zydeck. And then I've got a boxed Zydeck here as well. Again, because of the project that I'm doing with the Amiga, I'm probably not going to keep any of these now I've got the internal drives that I'm supposed to be able to convert to Amiga. This is another floppy drive emulator. This is an SD card based system, obviously with a screen and some buttons to select the image. Usual connectors to connect it up to the Amiga inside. This is obviously a much more modern and up-to-date version of a floppy drive emulator than the previous one. This is a rather battered looking box with a fairly crusty looking action replay. Again, I used to have one of these when I owned my Amiga. Unfortunately mine died and stopped working for some reason. I don't know why. I've still got my manual, which is a good job because this one's very crusty looking. This does actually work, so that will be part of the build. A couple of more odd bits here. This is a SCSI bridge board, and it allows you to connect an IDE device to a SCSI controller. Again, it's in the A590. I could use an IDE hard drive through this interface board. There are other solutions to that now. There's the SD card based SCSI drives, which I think I found one of in one of the earlier videos. That was bought way after this. This was bought a long time ago. These are actually really expensive to buy now. You can't get hold of them. At the time I bought this from the States, I think, and soon wished that I'd bought two because they were about, I think they were about 30 quid. They're now about 100 for these, I think. But whether this will actually now get used, I don't know. This is another oddity. This is actually inside of here something called VBS Video Backup System, which was a bit of software and hardware that allowed you to back up your floppy drives to VHS videotapes, and you could also back up your hard drives and then obviously do a restore to recover disks or recover backups. It used to come in as much smaller housing than this. This is actually the Stereo Master housing from my original Stereo Master, but I just repurposed it for this because I seem to have killed a lot of my Amiga hardware. So I've obviously messed about with this. I'm not quite sure what the battery connectors are for, but that's something I'm definitely going to be looking at, because I do still have some VHS tapes which should have images of my old games on, and may even have an original hard drive installation from well over 20 years ago, so that will definitely be worth a look if I can get it working. This is something fairly modern. It's just a something I can't get out of the box. It's just a HDMI converter, so you get a VGA input and HDMI output. The idea of this was again for use with the Amiga project. The Amiga doesn't have VGA out natively, but there are other solutions to give you VGA, and then I was thinking of using that to then go to HDMI. And this is the thing that gives you VGA on the A500. Now I think this is actually installed. It's individual computers, what is it called? Indivision ECS. So that plugs directly onto one of the chips on the main board. It looks like it's the Denise chip, and then that gives you a VGA output, so not running through a scan doubler or anything like that. It's a very good bit of hardware, not cheap at the time, and I don't know if they're still making them now or not. I think they're making them for the 1200 with HDMI output, but I'm not so sure about. Okay, another box. This looks like another ROM switcher, and find a chip of some sort. Yes, there's a ROM switcher, not sure. 2.04 ROM, I'm guessing that's probably a 1.3. This is a version with the toggle switch, so you'd mount that through the back of your case somehow and you could manually toggle. May use that, may not, I don't know yet. And this is, I don't know what that is. It could be an Agnes chip, maybe. I think I did buy a fatter Agnes chip. I was looking at possibly upgrading the A2000 to the 2 meg chip RAM, but I don't think I should be bothering to do that. I'll keep that separate so I know it's there. A more modern Amiga power supply. The pins on these things always look black for some reason. I'm guessing this is for an A600 or an A1200 originally. And very, very, very yellow 500 supply. I think. Oh no, it's a A600. Yeah. It's a more modern one because it's not heavy. People back in the day will remember these things. These were manual switcher boxes for multiple connections of, well, multiple devices connected to one port, either parallel or serial. So this would allow you to connect 4 devices to one port and then use the select switch on the front to pick which one. It's all mechanically switched inside. Yeah, I've just got that for some reason. And I think there's some more here. 3 of those, different sorts and numbers of connectors. This is a VGA one, as you can see from the type of connector on the back. Whether they'll get used, I don't know. This was bought as a gamble, really. Again, quite a while ago. This is an old GVP accelerator and RAM expansion. It's not in the cleanest, most well cared for condition, but it's not terrible. I don't know if this works. I've got no power supply. I think that's why I bought the other power supplies, to perhaps adapt to power this. Do have plenty of chips, so if the main processor is the problem, I can obviously switch one of those in and have a look at this. I don't know, is it? I don't think these have hard disks in them. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Okay, so this is the A2000 keyboard. Unfortunately, very, very yellowed. That's just unfortunately how it goes with these things. The keys are alright. The keys look fine, just dirty. Apart from the space bar, that doesn't look fine. The casing's not the best. Got to be honest, I don't think it was this yellow when I got it, but who knows. These things do go very yellow, unfortunately. Finally, the Amiga A500 Plus that I bought. This is really what started all this. I still had my Spectrum Plus 3 and the tapes and a few small remnant bits of Amiga stuff left over from when I had one, but buying this is what really has resulted in all the other stuff. It's unfortunately not really materialised into the project it was meant to be. As you can see, it's not even screwed down. There's no shield with this. It's not in the best condition, but it does work. It does work. You can see in here the individual ECS system here, which gives you your VGA output. That's in here because I have tested this and I wanted to test that quite a few years ago now. That was done. So I know the system works. It just needs a bit of care and attention. The idea of this as a project was to actually convert the Amiga 500 into a tower case system and then mount all of the hardware in the tower with the main board, rather than having everything connected externally and having to have quite a large space set up to set all this up. As you can see, you start adding things like this on the side as well. You need a lot of space for this, and it's susceptible to getting knocked about. And you've got all your joysticks, there's all the sampling hardware. A lot of things can fit in here, but it'll be better in a tower case system. But that is obviously a fairly big project in itself to undertake. I'll just quickly demonstrate this thing and then end this excessively long video. So the idea is that would go inside expansion port. Your first device would then connect in somewhat as normal, and then you could connect something else like the action replay in there like that, which is a bit precarious, but hopefully that's visible on the camera. And that's how that would be. I used to have a desk with a specially built wooden stand, and that used to support this here. So the Amiga was on one half, the hard drive was in a small section to the left, and then that was supported by an upright piece of wood here. There was basically a hole through it. So it was quite safe in the setup I had. Okay, so that's the final box emptied out. I've got an idea of what I've got now and what I need to do. Hopefully this hasn't gone on for too long, but probably has. Thanks for watching.